This is Matt Ryan. I think I'm supposed to be starting this event. This is my first time participating in a virtual JCC post-pandemic Jewish community event, and I'm really excited. I wanted to take a moment to just thank Cantor Nancy Bach, who is a person who Josh and a group of people at the JCC engaged to try to do something Jewish with the Jewish community through the JCC. The JCC is like kind of opened up for health and fitness. It certainly is, but I think we all miss being there and seeing each other and having some Jewish community. And Cantor Bach has put together a bunch of programs, including this one about wine, which we knew might be somewhat interesting to people. I see there's a lot of participants here, and I have a number of them in my house. And I just wanted to say thank you to her. I also just want to say thank you to everyone who's participating. And I wanted to say thank you to Josh, our expert on Israeli wines, and I hope everyone enjoys. That's it.
So hi everyone, I'm Cantor Nancy Bach. I'm actually based in Manhattan, but I have very close family in Rochester. I love Rochester, and it's been really wonderful to get to meet the whole team at the JCC. And to get to sort of know other facets of Rochester through working on these events, including this one tonight. So I also want to throw out a little bit of thanks to Ralph Moranto at the J, and also the amazing Mark Cataldi, who's behind the scenes making it all happen this evening. Very important, a shout out to Matt Yeager at Pinnacle Wines in Brighton for helping our wine expert, who you will meet in just a moment, in stocking wine, in selling wine for this evening. Absolutely feel free to visit him at the store. I don't think it's too late to pick up a bottle or two if you are compelled after tonight. So before turning our program over to our expert on the wines of Israel, a quick word about the connection between wine and Judaism. Wine's connection with Jewish culture reaches back a long time, about 5,000 years, and has a direct connection with the land of Israel, Haaretz. The presence of wine reflects our agricultural heritage, and as many here know, that heritage is what our whole holiday and annual cycle is built on. The appreciation of wine has its roots in religious practice, and our sacred texts remind us not to drink in excess and not to overindulge. Wine is definitely considered a beverage of spiritual significance, and it is reserved for holy and special occasions, including tonight. Early rabbis incorporated wine into Jewish holidays and ceremonies like Passover and Purim, used it for Kiddush and Havdalah and Shabbat, and many mitzvot are accompanied by a cup of wine. Blessings are recited over a cup of wine at the happiest times, including under the wedding canopy. So finally, it's, I think, interesting to note that the Romans were responsible for refusing Jews the right to plant their vineyards after the destruction of the Second Temple. So banned from our homeland, at that point we were forced to find other lands and economic means to survive, and planting of vineyards and winemaking in Palestine did not begin its rebirth until the mid-19th century. So this is a great time for me to stop and turn it over to Josh Greenstein. He is 5th generation in the wine business, and currently serves, among other roles, as the executive vice president of the Israel Wine Producers Association. Josh Greenstein, we are so happy to welcome you to the JCC of Rochester, and I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Nancy. And hello, everybody. Just a quick little bit about me and who's on the screen and you're listening to for the next half hour, 45 minutes about wine. Joshua Greenstein. You know what? Before we get any further, let's make this easier. Let's all stop what we're doing, listening to me for a second. Let's make sure we go get a bottle of wine because that's what we're here for. So I'll tell you my story in a second. Let's go grab something. If you don't have one of the wines that we have this evening, grab something. So let's give everybody a 30-second break to open them up, pour some wine in their glass, and everyone get even. So as we're all doing that, we have 4 wines that you're going to be hearing me talk about tonight. As Nancy mentioned, I'm 5th generation wine business. I'm zooming in tonight from Westchester, New York. I'm born and raised in Albany, so not too far from you guys. And I now travel the whole country promoting the fun, the positive, the good things coming out of Israel. In this case, we're talking about wine. I don't think the fun, the positive, and the good things out of Israel are talked about enough, especially these days. I think we need to be focusing more on the cool and the fun. So we're talking about wine tonight. We're talking about a thing that Nancy had mentioned is 5,000 years old. And the joke I make is that Nancy heard before is I say, Israel's been making wine for about 5,000 years. They just got good at it. All right. It took a long time of learning and practicing and getting to the point where they are today, where I just got an email this morning actually from Wine Enthusiast. It's a major wine magazine, and Wine Enthusiast just gave I think it's 35 of my wines at least 90 points, and I have some that got Best Buys and all this. But wines from Israel that are getting 90 points plus from Parker, Wine Enthusiast, and Spectator. It's awesome to see that Israel's gotten to that point. And Nancy had mentioned all these great holidays for drinking wine, right? But I see some people on this call that Wednesday's a holiday, or Tuesday's a holiday, or Monday's a holiday. So there's really no reason to make it a holiday to have to drink wine. You're drinking wine all the time anyway, with pizza, with food. Wine pairs well with all these things. So wine does pair well with a Wednesday. And it makes no difference to what the holiday is. But Nancy, there is one holiday where they do tell you that you're supposed to get so drunk that you forget everything, which is Purim. So there's one holiday where you're supposed to get really drunk. Otherwise, you're supposed to drink in moderation and supposed to appreciate everything. But when wine was first introduced to the world back then, it was a positive thing because it was a good thing. And I think in today it's become complicated for a lot of people. And one of the things I like to bring to the wine world is just simplicity and stories and what makes the wine fun. So we have 4 wines on the list that we're talking about today. Some of you may have them, some of you may not have, but I see one square here that has Hannah has the Tabor Sauvignon Blanc, I believe. Yeah, in front of them. So a little bit about the Tabor Sauvignon Blanc that we're going to be drinking first, that I'm going to be talking about first. There's Tabor is a winery that's in the Galilee. The reason I love this winery so much is because they have a full-time agronomist on staff. Agronomist is a woman. Her name is Michal Ankerman, and her full-time job is to take care of the earth and take care of the dirt and feel the land. She's not organic. She's not sustainable. She's not a green winery, but she's all those things with no certification. This winery is just a beautiful place. And you'll see behind me, I have all these different kind of soil types. I have sandy soil from the Negev. I have limestone. I have some clay soil from the Golan Heights. And I'm just showing you all these different types of terroir that land that Israel has and is able to grow all these different kind of grapes that we're going to be tasting tonight. But as you see on the label here, there's an owl on the top of on the label. And like I said, what Israel offers to a lot of their wines are great stories. And the story behind the owl, it's a great one because this vineyard specifically, Tabor specifically, was doing so much for the earth and wanted to do so much for the land that they said that when the land gets back, how will we know that the land is back and the land is healthy and we're at homeostasis, we're there. And the guys came in and the farmers came and said, when the barn owl returns to the vineyard, you know that you're there. You know that the barn owl is there. It's able to eat the mouse, who's able to eat the snake, who's able to eat the bug, who's able to eat the plant. And the vineyard is at a perfect place that you're back. So this owl recently went on the bottle a couple of years ago, showing the story and telling the story, how great this wine is, the wine and land is, and what they're doing for the environment. But what's in your glass is beautiful also. This is an unoaked white wine, Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc, when you think of it, usually You might think of New Zealand, or you might think of California. But this one's a little different in style. This one's just an easy, fresh, clean wine. And this is also in the screw cap. And we'll do a little bit just about wine 101 while I have you here and you can't go anywhere, unless you click leave. Wine 101. This is Sauvignon Blancs and wines, fresh wines like this, I think are totally appropriate for screw caps. I personally am a big fan. I don't think that the screw cap should ever get in the way of a purchase. If anything, it's better. You know that you're getting a perfect quality wine in the bottle, and there's no air that's gotten through that cork on the top of the bottle. You know it's where you want it to be. And then, has anyone purchased all 4 wines? I think it's just Nancy that's drinking. Okay, yes. Okay, so I see some hands. Perfect. So for those of you who are drinking all 4 wines, first of all, give me a pound. We don't have to finish every bottle. All right, we're not obligated. But if you do, Nancy's supplying Tylenol and water for you guys before you go to bed afterwards, and we'll be good to go tomorrow morning. But if you don't finish the wines, just know some tricks about it, because we just opened a bottle of white wine in the house tonight. And then with dinner, we'll have a little glass of red, or we'll go back and forth. The white wine, again, what I'm going to give you is my opinion, stays for about 2 or 3 days in the fridge. Okay. If you take that bottle of white wine, if it's screw cap, put the screw cap back on, put it in the fridge. If it's cork, you stick the cork upside down and punch it back in. It goes in easier upside down for some reason, just goes back in easier that way. In 2 to 3 days. And then we're going to be drinking some red wines also today. Very similar to the red wines. Take the cork, put it back in upside down, and I would not put that in the fridge. I would personally keep that outside in a cool spot in the corner of your kitchen, or a cool dark place. And again, 2 to 3 days. And I just saw Nancy has a young son there. Like my house, I have a 7-year-old running around, and we have a lot of fresh fruit sometimes, right? Like that pineapple's about to go, Nancy, or all those strawberries that are cut up and in the fridge. So a great trick with that is to make sangria. So like on that 4th day of the wine about to go bad, you go get yourself a carafe, you pour the wine in, you cut up all the fruit, you put it in there. And then before you serve, you can put some brandy and a little ginger ale and have a fun drink also. So like for me, when I'm drinking my iced coffee and it gets low, and I put that second cup of ice in and I get like second drink, it's like second drink all over again. So it's a whole new cocktail with sangria. So that's just too fun. And you can just pick the fruits for the summer and make it fun and fresh. So that's a little bit about Tabor Sauvignon Blanc, and some fun, fresh food that I would pair this with. This is a good grilling wine. And you're thinking, grilling wine? What are you talking about? I'm grilling, this is while you're grilling. This is to open up while you're grilling and you're on the grill and you're drinking while you're making your steak or your chicken or whatever. This is a great wine to go with that because it's just fresh and clean. We were also, it's rosé season also. We don't have any rosés with us, but rosés have become extremely popular. And we're tasting tonight in order of the wines of like body wise and how you would taste if you're tasting light to fuller. I would put a rosé before all that. So rosés have just become extremely popular. Also, the growth of white wine in Israel has become extremely, extremely popular over the past couple of years with the growth of Mediterranean cuisine and the growth of all these great chefs. So that's Tabor. Next, we're going to jump to a great winery called Psagot. This is Psagot Chardonnay. So for those of you who are drinking them all, let's pound it, drink up, let's go. And the next one we're drinking is Psagot Chardonnay. So we're going from grapes, we're going around the country. So before we were up in the north, we were in the northern part in the Galilee, overlooking the Sea of Galilee. Now we're going to drive about 2 hours north, and we're going to head to Jerusalem, to the Judean hills. I actually just booked my trip. I usually go to Israel twice a year. I just booked my trip. I'm in the middle of planning it out. I'm going for 2 weeks in July, and I'm so excited. So when I do these, so many of these Zooms, I've been doing literally hundreds of these Zooms in the past year plus. So for me to be talking about them and mentally in my head, I'm planning the trip back. It's kind of a cool thing for me to feel like I'm back there, not just in the glass, but or the bottle. I'm back there in, my feet touching the ground soon enough. And that brings me into a great story here of Psagot Winery. And those of you who have ever tasted Psagot Winery, they're one of the fastest growing boutique wineries in Israel now. They just moved their building, their winery itself, maybe during the pandemic, like in the middle. So I was gonna say 6 months ago, they made a big move and they jumped across the street to a new facility where they're producing some great wines. Let's see if I have it handy here. Yeah, I have something. I'll show you guys. So Psagot is famous for this this coin. And this is a replica. I have the real one behind me also, but this one was quicker to grab, just being honest with everybody on the call. So this coin is really important to the Psagot family, okay? It's on all their bottles. It tells the story. And what this coin is, this is a coin that was found in a cave at the winery that they still use today to age the wines. So this was from a cave from 66 CE. And why is this coin so important? Because this coin was found next to old wine jugs. And what does that show? That shows you that these guys were in the wine business back in the day. And Nancy had mentioned earlier about the Romans. These guys were selling wine to the Romans thousands of years ago. So when I opened up the conversation by saying, Israel has been making wine for 5,000 years and they just got good at it. At this point of the Zoom, I usually say the same thing. I say, Israel's just been making wine for 5,000 years. They just got recognized for being good at it. Because why do I change that word and add the word recognized? Because now they're at the point where they were. Because think about it, the Romans could have bought wine from anywhere they want in the world. Okay, pretty much. They decided to come to Israel. For those of you who know the land and know Israel and are learning more about it and love the land like I do, you'll know that when you go to like a farm there, it's not just a row of vineyards. So normally if you go to California and you go to a winery, they have rows of Chardonnay. You go to the next vineyard, something different. If you go to Israel with all these soil types like you see behind me, they're going to have 6 rows of Sauvignon Blanc, 3 rows of Chardonnay, 6 mango trees, a pistachio bush. They're going to be trying some new hybrid plant that you've never heard of a star pineapple, apple, grape tree. And it's going to be growing. It's going to be the coolest thing. And they're going to have all this stuff on one little 2-acre plot of land. Why? Because Israel's amazing and they can do cool things and they can grow some of the best stuff and they embrace technology. So that's something that I think we need to focus on also is for 5,000 years, they've always been technologically advanced. They've always been ahead of the game. They've always been ready to go. And you'll know that with wines like this, when these guys had the ability to grow great wines back in the day. And now I'm going to put Nancy on the spot for 1 second. I did not rehearse this with her. I promise you, Nancy. So you speak Hebrew way better than I do. So we're drinking a Chardonnay right now, correct?
Ken.
Okay. So people always say, where is wine from? Where does wine originate from? Okay. What does this translate to? Chardonnay. Char Adonai.
Song of God?
Yeah, from the gates of God, from the song of God. So
gates of God, yeah.
Gates of God, Shar Adonai. That's where Israel, that's where Jerusalem is. So it's a made up story by a lot of people, but myself pushing it a lot. Shar Adonai, the gates of God, is where Chardonnay came from. It's where Jerusalem is from. It shows you that this land is rich in history. And it's just amazing to be able to see that the wine has finally gotten to the point now where you guys are upstate New York. Total Wine is not really in New York yet, but stores across the country and stores like Matt's store and stores and restaurants are starting to recognize that Israel is a real deal place and Israel's making wine and growing wine and producing it. And, we were all wondering, what can we do in this pandemic? We can't travel. We can't go. What can we do to support Israel? You know what you do? You call up Matt at the liquor store. You buy a case of wine, you give out gifts to everybody of wine from Israel. And you say, here, look how proud I am of Israel. Look what they can do. Look what they can make. Try this. So that's what was going on with Israel now and their wines. We're going to jump to 2 more of the reds going through the tasting list here. So we just tasted Psagot Chardonnay, the old ancient wine from 66 CE. This wine is now, I said like 20 minutes outside Jerusalem, is producing some great wines. So now we're going to jump to Barkan. We're going to jump down to Barkan Pinot Noir. And Barkan Pinot Noir is a great wine. I'm going to pull up a picture. We're going to do this a little. Here's this perfect picture to show you. So this is a really cool picture. And this is much easier for me to do than share my screen and do all that stuff. I'm just going to hold up my phone. This is called Old School Zoom. Okay. This is a very cool picture. And everyone's like, what is this? What is this, right? This is an aerial shot of the Barkan Pinot Noir being grown in the middle of the desert. Okay, so this is an aerial shot of the vineyard the Pinot Noir grape being grown in the desert. Again, this wine retails. You guys got a special price of $10 a bottle. So this is like technology at its finest of wine being grown in the middle of the Negev. And if we have any big wine people on this call and wine lovers, there's a certain thing called a master of wine. Okay, there's about 400 of them in the world. To become a master of wine, you got to study very hard, learn a lot, drink a lot of wine, read a lot, drink a lot of wine, read a lot, drink a lot of wine. And drink a lot of wine. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on into that class. There's only 400 of those people in the whole world. 2 of them are in Israel. Okay. One of them is the winemaker for Barkan. Okay. So interesting fact. Barkan at $9.99 right now, there's no winemaker in the world that's a master of wine that's making a wine that retails for this price. Okay. So it's just unbelievable to see that it's not like these guys are waking up and saying, I'm going to do this. These guys are putting time, effort, and a lot of thought and process into studying and learning to do the best thing and embrace it. So the fact that this guy can sell a wine for $10 a bottle and is a master of wine, it's unbelievable. So if you just want, for fun later, if you're really into wine, you don't know what a master of wine is, look him up. It's unbelievable. His name is Edo Levinson. And look what you need to do to take this the test. It's like you have to be able to open up a bottle of wine, tell you the country, the vintage, the year, the price, the grape, without even looking at it. It's so amazing to be able to do. But what's in your glass now is something I'm telling you. This is the Pinot Noir. This is a light, fresh, easy drinking grape. This is a summer red for me. This is the one that I don't mind chilling down my Pinot Noirs, putting them in the fridge for, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 minutes beforehand. Pinot Noirs are meant to do that kind of stuff. And this goes good with some lamb and some lighter meats also. So that's the story of Barkan. Barkan, again, is one of the largest, if not the largest winery in Israel currently, and they're really producing a lot of high-end wines as well. This just happens to be their entry level, but you can buy wines from them for $70, $80, $90 a bottle also. So it's just amazing to see that Israel's now being able to produce a $10 bottle and a $100 bottle also at the same point. And you'll see behind me this gold bottle behind me. That is actually a bottle by Amari Stoudemire. If there's any basketball fans out there, Amari Stoudemire is a good friend, and he makes 3 wines in Israel and 3 wines in California. And he has done quite well with his NBA career, and he's doing now quite well with his wine career. And if you're still following him in basketball, he's the coach of the Brooklyn Nets, and they're in the second round tomorrow or Saturday. So we'll get to one more great story here, and I'll tell you about one more great wine that we have in front of us. So the wine that we have in front of us is the Tulip Cabernet. All right. So for those of you who are drinking along with us, we've gone, again, lighter in body, and we're working our way up in structure. That's what gives you the ability to kind of taste a lot of wines throughout an evening, is when you're tasting them like this. If you go from full and you start throwing yourself off, this just makes it easier on the stomach and on the palate. So Tulip it's really one of my favorite stories in Israel. And it's good transition because, as I just mentioned, that Amari Stoudemire produces 3 wines in Israel. He makes them at Tulip Winery. So Tulip is a small community in the northern part of Israel, located at a community called Kivar Tikva, which translates to Village of Hope. And what the Village of Hope is a community for mentally challenged men and women, autistic, other mental challenged things that they have wrong with them, where they're not able to live at home anymore. And the fact they were unable to live at home anymore, they needed a place to go. They needed a place to stay. They needed a place to be. And this community was open for them to be able to do this. Roy Yitzhaki is the owner of the Tulip Winery. And in Israel, a lot of the times the government will give money to you to open up in certain places and go into this area and make this. And much like the US also, we need to build up to certain areas. Let's go build it up. This place did not need any building up because it was a set thing. But Roy decided to open up the winery in the middle of this community. It was an old kibbutz, and he opened up the winery in the middle of this community and only employs members, special needs community. Okay. So throughout the year, he's employing 25, 30 members. During harvest, it triples to go up to 100 sometimes. Everything from the box to the labels to the capsules. The winemaker is not mentally challenged. He went to school in Australia and in France and learned great wines. And is now it's an absolutely amazing thing to see. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell about the winery is there was a young lady that came to the winery and she was a mute. She was 30 something years old at this point. She hadn't spoken a day in her life. She just kept to herself. She was extremely quiet. She just, and then when her parents brought her to this place and she started to get acclimated with it, eventually she, worked up where they would want to give her a job in the community. And now the joke is she works at Tulip Winery and she won't shut up. As soon as she got to the winery, she opened up. And they said to her, why? Like, can you talk about it? Like, where are you? What happened? She goes, this place just gave me a sense of living. Like it gave me something. Like I looked forward to waking up every morning and going and have a job and being able to take money and going to buy a soda after work. It's mine. It's like, it's not, it's on me now. It's all me. It's all me being able to do what I want to do. And it's an amazing thing. It's just, every time I go there, I try to visit as many wineries as I can, but for sure, Tulip is always on top of my stop places to go, just to be around the community and to experience the community. So for any of you who are planning on visiting in Israel anytime soon, I hope we all get over there very, very soon. Wine tours are fun. These vineyards are investing a ton. Wineries are investing a ton of money in visitor centers and advertising and marketing and cheese and crackers at their place and all these beautiful things. So it's really, really come a long way where some of these wineries can get big, huge tour buses coming in. But visiting Tulip is just an amazing place to visit because of the story and the great wines that they're making. And they're consistently getting 90 plus points. And their tagline, don't quote me exactly, you can label wines, but you can't label people. Similar to that, but along those lines. And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to be on that page and just to see it's so true, especially in today's world. We always want to try new stuff and do new things. And I think Israeli wines are one of them. What's in your glass tonight, though, is a Cabernet. So again, we worked our way through the grapes. We've tried 4 grapes so far tonight. And I've done all 100% varietals. So if we enjoyed tonight and we want to put something on the docket or maybe something live or something else, we'll get into blends in a whole nother level. But this is 100% Cabernet. It's not 100% Cabernet. It's 90% Cabernet with 5% 2 other things, Carignan and Viognier. But when I say 100%, it's really because anything above 85% in the world of wine is pretty much 100%. They don't have to label it that. They can just write Cabernet, write whatever they want. But these guys are really honest and told you exactly what it is. And if you know your wines, Viognier, the grape that is 5%, is actually a white wine used in the grape blending process. It's used for fining. It's used for aging, making the wine age a little better and a little more fruity. Also, a lot of the wines from Israel are vegan friendly. They don't use egg whites in the fining process, and sometimes they use these white wines to shoo away from that as well. So if you take anything away from tonight overall from the Israeli wine perspective, they've gotten to a cool point. Most of the wine, 30, 40 years ago was kept into Israel. The export numbers are through the roof now, America being their number one market that the wines are coming to, but they're exporting out to all these crazy countries in Europe, to Asia, to Australia, to Canada's a huge market. South America is growing like leaps and bounds. And if you've noticed, there's a word that I have not mentioned this whole call, right? There's a word that I stay completely away from, and it's the K word. All these wines have that K on the back of them, but the guy that's walking in and selling Lay's potato chips, Snapple, Hershey, Godiva, Ben & Jerry's, and a million other items that we can sit here and mention all night long isn't talking about that K on the back of the bottle. The K on the back of the bottle does not affect the quality, the taste, the structure, the style, the price, anything about it. So these are just great wines from Israel that happen to have a K on the back of it, and you want to drink it on a holiday called Passover, you can do that too. So The old sweet wines that you might be used to that also had that label on the back of it, they're still there. They're still there for symbolic reasons. Am I going to tell you that I don't drink them for holidays or use them in cooking? Of course I do. That's the old memories that are always going to be with me. But moving on, for a typical Thursday, Tuesday, holiday, whatever, there's these wines now that retail from $10 and all the way up, and consistently get 90 plus points. Parker, wine enthusiast, spectator, and growing. I was just in South Beach recently, South Beach Food and Wine. It was my first event back in 2 years or a year and a half, whatever it was. And South Beach Food and Wine, they do the Sobe Food and Wine Show. And it's amazing. Every year we have this giant booth that says Israel. And I have people every single year that come up to my table and I videotape them. And they say, we didn't even know that Israel made wine. And these people are spending anywhere from $200 to $300 a ticket to come to this wine show, and have never had a wine from Israel, let alone know that Israel even made wine or produced wine. So as all of you are proud members of your local JCC, this is your opportunity again to get in front of your friends, give them a gift. Next time you go to someone's barbecue or house or party this weekend or summer or whatever, simple. You're going to bring them a bottle of something, right? Go to Matt's store. Just ask for anything from Israel. I don't even care if it's one of mine. I just want you to buy something from Israel to show them that, when you're walking to someone's house, it's a white wine. You want a Sauvignon Blanc? This is great. Hannah will bring this in wherever she goes to the next Sauvignon Blanc she needs to do. It's perfect. So this is where we are with Israeli wines. We're hopefully all getting off of Zoom soon. We're hopefully all going to each other's house soon. I see some of the houses have more people than others, and this is a beautiful thing. We're getting to the point now where the doors are starting to open. My kid's going to summer camp, sleepaway camp this summer. We're all getting, we're almost all there. So there's nothing better through good times or bad times. People always used to say to me, "Hey, Josh, how's the wine business?" And I would say, you have a good day at work, you're going to go home and have a glass of wine. You have a bad day, you're going to go home and have 6. So a lot of people had 6 glasses of wine for the past year and a half, and business was good in some parts. So for those of you whose tolerance are up, maybe that's why you're drinking 4 bottles of wine tonight. That's a great thing. That's one of the positive effects of Corona, I guess, on my side of things. I'm not trying to be greedy or anything, but yeah, you're up a little bit, You're drinking less water, more wine. I guess it helps me. But on a serious note, listen, we're all here to learn more, to have fun, to do new cool things. Israeli wine is one of them, because most of you have, maybe that stigma in the back of your mind that I'm drinking sweet wine once a year and that's it. No, this is great wines all year round. So I want to thank you guys for your time tonight. I think Nancy and myself are going to open up for some questions or for some comments. If you guys have any food pairing questions or wine questions or storage questions, let me know. And we'll go from there. So I want to thank you, everybody. And I want to say thank you to Nancy. I did a lot of these Zooms during COVID and Corona, whatever we're calling it, at the end of this thing. I tell people if I had a frequent flyer miles for Zoom, I'd be staying in the King David for 6-8 months straight in the penthouse. I'd have a lot of points. And Nancy was a pleasure to work with and to get this going for the community. So Nancy, thank you very much. And let's open up the floor, I guess.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh. I think I see I see a bunch of questions in the chat. And if anyone would like to ask a question aloud, as Mark just said, feel free to let us know, and we'll share you on screen. So if you have a question, just write your name in the chat or tell us that you have a question and we will get you visible. Okay, let's start with a very softball here. Judy's party at Charlotte Square. What is your opinion about the vacuum thingy instead of using a cork, Josh?
Well, the vacuum thingy, again, it's cool. So again, for the most part, wine, once you open that cork and you let any amount of air into that bottle, it's pretty much going to be 2 to 3 days. So the vacuum maybe gives you an extra day, takes a little air out of it. But for the most part, I think that you're going to get 2 to 3 days out of the bottle of wine. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to kill the bottle of wine. Something really cool along those lines is a new technology called the Coravin. If you look up the Coravin, it was invented by a doctor. It's a medical surgical needle that goes into the bottle, puts gas into the bottle, pours the wine out, and technically never opens the bottle. So you could pour yourself a glass of wine, let's call it until the bottle's empty, which is what, 2-3 days, 7 days, but you can pour it for 2 years straight. And like you could take a little bit out of that bottle and technically never open the bottle. I use that. I give that to all my salesmen. It's an expensive tool. It's about $150, maybe $200 a tool, a unit. But I give it to my salesmen now so they can walk around with expensive bottles and not have to throw them away at the end of a work with, or go home and, it's become a cool thing. It's called a Corvin. So it lets people open up way better bottles of wine that they want to open and don't want to have to waste it.
Great. Do we have any questions over at the Ryan household?
Yeah, the Ryans have a lot of questions. But we most want to know what makes a wine kosher? What's the deal with boiling wine, and what actually makes a wine kosher?
All right, perfect. I'll give you a very simple answer, okay? So nothing. All right, so it's all in the observation process, okay? Are you familiar? So for those of you who don't keep kosher, personally, I don't keep kosher, but I know a lot about this process these days. So there's a very famous champagne company called Laurent Perrier. And has anyone ever heard of Laurent Perrier LP? It's a very famous champagne. It's, let's call it $40, $50, $70 a bottle. It's expensive. It's a real champagne, real deal place. Okay. For those of you who don't know it, would anyone put your hand up? Would you agree that the French in the wine world are probably the most snooty and snotty, right? Most people would agree that you got to follow the French rules. Okay. So there's a $50 bottle of French champagne called Laurent Perrier. Okay. Non-kosher. 5 years ago, the kosher wine world has been growing like this. The kosher community, the people that keep kosher only, are climbing like this. They're spending a lot more money, a lot. So we went to France and we asked them to make Laurent Perrier kosher for us. Okay, so they did it. So now I have Laurent Perrier kosher version of it. It's the exact same thing, exact same bottle, exact same everything, except there's a little UP on the bottom, the back label. Why am I giving the Ryan family that analogy? Because I'm showing you that if some French snooty family who I'm friends with would make a kosher version with their same label on it, that shows you that it does not affect the quality. Okay, that they're still charging the same amount, they're still doing everything. Okay, I have a lot. Maya Kamas, it's an expensive Napa, California one. They make a kosher version of it. Don't do it. Bunch of French wineries do it. Okay, so that's just to show you that kosher means nothing. Ben & Jerry's is kosher. Lay's is kosher. If the Ryans don't keep kosher in their house and they go into their pantry right now and take out the next 10 non-perishable items, I promise you 8 of them will be kosher. And okay, so that's just the way that it is. Now, she asked me another question. We don't have a ton of time, but I'll give you the briefest answer I have about boiled, right? Everyone always heard, kosher Jewish wine is boiled. So usually they say Jewish wine is boiled. No. So there's a term called flash pasteurization, or mavushal. On the back of, are any of the wines that you were drinking mavushal? I don't think so. So mavushal is just flash pasteurization. In the halachic religious world, it means a lot more. But in the simplest forms, it means that the wine has been flash pasteurized, okay? Just like milk, just like a lot of beverages. If there's any wine professionals on this call, I don't know if Matt joined us for the call, but there's a very famous winery called Boat Castel. Okay, Boat Castel. If you look up Boat Castel and try to find a bottle, I would say probably it's $400, $500, $600 a bottle. Non-kosher winery, $300, $400, $500, $700, $800 a bottle, like a lot. They do something called flash pasteurize their wine. They feel like it makes their wine better, but they're not kosher. They're not mavushal. They're not Jewish. They're not doing. It affects the quality better. So there's been a lot of studies lately from a lot of scientists to discover what this does to the wine. What does it do? Blah, 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 blah. As wine drinkers, a lot of us drink our wine too young. You know, some of the wine that we're drinking now, the Cabernet might be a 2019. That's young, right? Like it's 2 years old. You know, in my opinion, I think I should sit this one down for a year or two. unless I like it a little more green and herbaceous and this or whatever the feeling I get from a younger green wine like this. But simply also what Mavushl does is kind of ages the wine a little bit, right? You're pasteurizing something, you're heating it up. So what it does is wines like this that are 2019 Cabernets are beautiful. But if in 3 years from now, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be like exactly what the winemaker wanted to do. So that's kind of what Mavushl does to the wine also. So that was the long answer. I know, I apologize, but it's just showing you that quality is not affected by either of these.
Okay, our next question. Let's go to Valerie, who has a question that I believe she wants to ask live. So Valerie, go ahead and unmute. Great.
Hi, Val.
Joshua, I had to hear your voice and let everyone know that this is my friend who we used to carpool to Hebrew school together. So hearing you talk about Israel and wine it's something. But I just wanted to say hi. This was great. Miss you. Love to Jeff and Ed. And
thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. No, it's funny because like when Val was talking about me in Hebrew school, it's funny. Like, first of all, I never thought in a million years if you knew me in Hebrew school, I'd be selling brand Israel and promoting brand Israel. I was always a Zionist. I always supported Israel. I always had a special place. You know, I went to Israel as a kid, but I graduated from college and I went to go work for Gallo, and then I went to Yellowtail, and then I went to go work for all these other crazy wine companies. And then 11 years ago, I went to the Herzog, the Kedem family. And I pitched them on a concept of no one was out there promoting brand Israel. No one was out there just focusing on the simple fact that Israel had enough wines and enough money in their marketing budget to pay someone to run around and promote it. So that's what I'm doing these days, Val. I'm promoting the good, the fun things coming out of Israel. And it's a long way from Hebrew school in Albany for sure, but it's a fun thing to do.
So Josh, here's a question from Alan Freeman. Why do so few wine shops outside of New York, even places like Total, carry the highly ranked Israeli wines? Is the problem with the buyers or the distributors? Or is it just a lack of demand? Or maybe it's just a lack of knowledge?
Can I go with D, all of the above? Would be exactly my answer, because it's simple education. It's simple facts of like, and no one on the call take offense to this, but we all on this call probably support Israel, right? We all on this call would, if it's when the bombs were dropping, had a political view one way or the other, doesn't matter, but would do anything, would give the shirt off your back, would write a check for $18, $180, anything for Israel any time of the year, right? And you probably all, again, not stereotyping, but we probably only all keep kosher for maybe a week a year, right? Maybe, or a little longer, or have our things. But we can all do our things to help Israel more and more all the time. So I think it's a lack of knowledge on the fact of my own friends in Westchester. Like, all my friends are Jewish here in Westchester, but not in a million years would ever even know to go buy a bottle of Israeli wine. But they would go buy a bottle of wine. So I think it's the major lack of education. I don't think the Israeli wine industry got to that point yet where it is today, where we can actually puff our chest up and feel comfortable to be able to go into the retailers, to go into the restaurants, to be on Zooms like this. And to do it. So I think Israel's finally at that point now where it's all starting to come together. We have sommeliers on staff. We're bringing people to Israel. We're getting a chapter in the Wine Bible coming. Like, it's becoming a real place. So I think everything that you just said is a tiny piece of it. But I think it's being fixed and it's coming together. So if you walk into your retailer and they don't have it, ask for it. If you go to a restaurant and it's a shellfish restaurant, okay? And it's only lobster, like, oh my God, why did I just skip my mind? What's the place in Boston? Legal Seafood. The guy's name was Sandy Block. He was another one of those masters of wine, another one of the 1 of 400. He carried wines from Israel. At Legal Seafood, the best shellfish restaurant in the world was carrying Israeli wine. So I think it's like, don't be afraid to walk in, knowing that they don't have it, ask for it. So hopefully they can educate themselves and bring it in.
Josh, I think we have one or two more.
Okay.
From Kathleen Cronin. What is the harvest growing cycle like in Israel? I.e., is it similar to California due to the climate?
Yeah, the climate in Israel is definitely a little different than California. I think the climate in Israel is a little more steady. if it's fair to say. I think there's a little more embracing of the land. They know pretty much what the weather is going to be. I think California ranges a little more. Israel embraces technology, as I've said probably 1,000 times on this call. So I think that if they feel like, hey, let's put a canopy around the Sauvignon Blanc because we think it will work, but the canopy needs to be pink with blue polka dots because the sun will absorb it better because some scientists in Greece said it, they're going to try it. And if it works, it works. And then they're also trying new grapes, and they're planning not just Cab Shiraz like these grapes that we had in this. We could do a whole nother call on random grapes that you've never even heard of that are fun and Mediterranean and really cool also.
Great. So
don't be afraid to ask for the wine in local stops, like in places, or like, that's the ultimate for me. That's how I really, that's how I continue to grow.
So I'm just curious, for people who are tasting wines tonight, and we are very aware that not everyone has the wines in their homes right now, but for people who are tasting, just write in the chat if you have a favorite so far. Just curious to know.
But something just quickly about Total, and I'm just referring to them. I love all retailers, small, large, medium, doesn't matter. I mean, they're all supportive of mine. But just to show you an example of what Total has done, in many of their locations, they've actually put in Israeli sections next to the kosher section so that they distinguish the two sets. So, and I have stores, anyone from Chicago, there's a store chain called Binny's in Chicago. Binny's now has Israeli sections in their stores. So it's cool to be able to see that helps also. I see someone holding up a Yarden bottle. Yeah, Yarden's a great winery up in the Golan Heights. They're producing some great wines also. What does Stuart say? Grape juice. All right, I'll tell Stuart a secret, but everyone else has to mute. Stuart, every Shabbos, I'll only do Kiddush on grape juice. I can open any bottle of wine I want, but I'll only use grape juice. It's just symbolic to me. Brings me back to Temple Vow.
Okay, so we have, let's see, Tulip and Tabor, Psagot, more grape juice. Yeah, Tabor, Tulip, and Tulip, I think, are at the head of the pack.
And these are just small, a few from the wineries. I'm one of these, Tulip's producing. This is their entry level producing. They produce a white, they produce a rosé, they produce some great stuff also. Barkan for making sangria will like the white Tabor now. Agreed. So listen, everyone also, all these comments are great also, and it also shows you that wine is meant to be tasted and everyone will have their own opinion. If on these calls, people are gonna say, what's your favorite wine? That answer changes every call I'm on, because today's the weather is a little gloomy, it's raining, maybe a little fuller body white wine might be nice. I think the Chardonnay on a rainy day like this is probably a better wine for me. But that's the beautiful part about trying and doing all these different wines. You find out what the best scene is for the wine.
Do we have one more question from the Ryan household? Is that what I hear over here?
All right, there's a question from the Ryan home, believe it or not. 12 bottles later. Josh, Nancy, first of all, great job tonight. I'm Josh Weinstein. I work for the JCC, and everybody here is having a great time. So where are the Israelis in terms of wines? So, in Italy and France, it's part of the culture. The United States is finally getting up to speed. Where are the actual Israelis on that spectrum of understanding wines, wanting to be part of the wine culture?
Great question. That's one of the reasons why the category is growing so quickly, because Israel's still consuming, let's call it probably 80% of the wine that's made in Israel is being consumed in Israel. There's something called the WSET, which is a British-based wine school. They've now come into Israel and are teaching people like all the time. The growth of the food scene in Israel, if you've known, like the food scene with Zaha, with Mike Salmanoff, and all these Israeli famous chefs becoming popular, that really made the wine scene have to get behind it. Like if you were going to be 90% of your or 80% of your growth, wine sales are going to be in Israel, and the food scene is on fire, excuse me, shit, you better be making good wines, otherwise you're gonna miss the boat. You're gonna be behind, and everyone else's wines are gonna start to come in. So I think it was just a combination of a lot of different things: schooling, technology, people traveling all over the world and tasting good stuff. And there's no such thing as a bad bottle of wine. All right, you're gonna think I'm crazy for saying this. I don't like Moscato, okay? But Moscato is the #1 selling grape in the world right now. All right, I don't like it. But if I have a way I would drink it. Like if I was having a dinner party, I would stick a little bit in ice cube trays in my freezer. I would make a little thing to cleanse your palate, and I would serve little shots of frozen Moscato in between each course so people can clean their palate. That, to me, that's a beautiful way to show Moscato off. Or if I'm making a sangria or a slush puppy or something, there's ways to use it. Manischewitz, I need to make Haroset, so I'll use it. There's ways to use everything. And Manischewitz, by the way, it's sold like crazy across the world outside the kosher community. Most people consuming Manischewitz are not kosher, okay, or Jewish, or even know that it's kosher or Jewish wine. So there's no such thing as bad wine. But so Israel's come a long way. They're really making some great stuff these days. I think it's helped with us like this and Zooms and parties and events and all these people trying and seeing Israeli wine and expanding outside of the K box.
All right, we have a flurry of questions here. Josh, I'm going to fire them off. Can you recommend an Israeli sparkling wine?
Yeah, Yarden or Pelter. Two wines from the Golan Height regions. Yep.
Nice. Do you know what the origin of the name Tulip is?
Tulip believe it was the translation of the name of the community in the thing, but Kavar Tikva, the village of hope, is the community itself where Tulip is located.
What do you like to pair with hummus?
What do I like to pair it with? White wine, clean, fresh, something clean and fresh, something unoaked, easy, just let the food do the talking. And then the last one I see there, what is your favorite vineyard to visit in Israel? So I never make favorites, but it's wherever I am at that moment. I think being able to hop in a car and drive around Israel and just see 3 to 4 wineries in a day and just taste and do and go and do, that's awesome. So they're all my favorite because they're all amazing and their own special little story. And if you have never visited one, you have to get to them. Israeli rosés make sense. What's available in the U.S.? Israeli rosés are on fire right now. I probably have 25 of them available in the U.S. maybe. Quick thing about rosés. My favorite thing that people say to me about rosés is that they don't like white wine. Just to let everybody know, rosés are red wine. Okay, rosés are 99% probably red wine grapes. It's just the skin does not keep on contact with the wine that long. Picture you put the grape into a bucket, you let it sit there, and the pressure of the grapes are pushing everything down. The longer you leave the skin on the contact, the darker the juice will be on the bottom. If you just let it sit there for 5 minutes, the juice will be light. If it's there for 10 minutes, it'll be a little bit darker. That's all that rosé is. If you let it sit there for a week, it'll be a red wine. So recommended rosé. Rosés, again, you should check the back of the rosés because rosés are all varietally driven, meaning it's all different grapes. So you could base them on. I like the lighter pink style, very Provence style. It means more of that rose petal, more of the easy drinking. And I like rosé ice cold. The key to rosé to me is just keeping them cold, keeping the pitcher and the ice right next to you. It's easier that way, and you can drink a lot more.
Right.
I'm caught up.
Yeah. There was one question that was sent to me directly, and I don't know the answer to it. This may be a hardball, Josh, but do you know why the rebirth of the wine culture in Palestine happened? Why did it actually happen in the mid-19th century? Do you know?
Why did the rebirth in that region happen?
Yeah.
Because that region was, please don't quote me on this one either, but I believe that region was infamous for like where Shiloh and Psagot and these wineries are. If you chase the roots of the wine region back, it literally originates in these areas. in Yehuda Shomron in Israel, in these parts, this is where wine is traced and fruits back to. So I think from a biblical perspective, going back to those areas, that's huge. And I see the Rothschild name just popped up. Yeah, the Rothschild family founded the Carmel Winery in 1882. Baron Edmund Rothschild spent more money on Carmel Winery than he did on his own winery in France. So yes, he was a big, huge help to the wine region of Israel. He really put it back on the map.
God, Josh, thank you so much. You are getting rave reviews all around that are popping into my phone and onto a private chat. Thank you a million. Why don't we all unmute and give Josh Greenstein a huge toda rabah. Let's raise a glass. Toda rabah. That means thank you so much in Hebrew.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Josh.
Toda rabah. Toda rabah.
So Matt and Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So Matt, Ryan, and your household, do we have, I guess we probably have to sign off at some point in the next few minutes, but any closing thoughts from the Ryan household?
Yes, we have one closing thought.
Hi, everybody. It's Karen. Wow, what a great event this was. Nancy, when we dreamed this up, I didn't know what to expect, but it was actually really great. And we're sitting here, I swear to God, while we're on mute, we're sitting here thinking, maybe we should rent a bus and go with all our kind of grown children and like 45 people in a bus and do a wine tour of Israel. I mean, it really sort of was inspiring in that respect. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that. And it was a great evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Let me know. I would love to run that trip, and you can get me out of my house. Let's go.
Do you think? I just said to someone here, do you think he would be like a tour guide for us? How much fun would that be?
When do we want to leave? You got to just tell me when we want to leave. I'm ready. I'm literally.
Right,
I'm ready to go this summer. So
you may not be able to run with us. I'm just warning you, but that sounds great.
I'll follow in the car behind. All right, it's fine.
Valerie Eilhart's mom is driving the bus.
Valerie Eilhart's mom is going to drive the bus. Apparently, I don't know what that means.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. If there's anything else you need or you have any other questions, Nancy, you can feel free to share my email with everybody. And otherwise, thanks again, everybody. Have a great night. And you don't have to drive, I hope. So just Zoom safely.
Eating